Hello, my name is Noelle Adler and I'm the clinical lead at Somerset Counselling Centre, and I'm going to be working today with a dear friend and colleague of mine called Sian Tennant. She too is a therapist at SEC and in private practice. So both of us spend a lot of time thinking and feeling about what it is to be human. And one of the things about being human is loneliness. And it's not an easy subject. It's certainly not an easy feeling. And it's really a dilemma for human beings, because for us to separate and become ourselves, we have to experience loneliness. Yet, we resist it at all costs because we are basically herd animals. So I've been thinking about this a lot, and I was thinking, so that's an anxious dilemma. We have to experience this feeling to become ourselves. And yet, evolutionarily speaking, of course, we were born into systems. We were born into networks so that we could survive. We were born into families and we were born into tribes. And the reason for that was that we had a better chance of surviving. And I think when we feel lonely, it triggers lots of other negative thoughts and feelings that latch on to the feeling of loneliness. The other conundrum and the other difficulty with loneliness is that when we're conceived and we're with our mom and we're growing, we are a constellation with her. We are at one with her. And even through the trauma of birth, we remain a constellation with our moms or the primary carer. If at that point you're not with your mom, the primary carer. So in psychotherapy terms, in psychological terms, we don't ever really consider the baby, because the baby is the baby and the mother. And that constellation, I know it's a great word, that constellation remains for a very long time. About 6 months old, 6 to 9 months, we start wanting to start establishing ourselves. And you will notice little ones, they do this. They kind of look at their hand and this kind of wonderment of, my goodness, that's me. And they start looking at you. I don't know if you've ever had a baby stare, but they're quite knowing. They sort of look at you and they really look at you. Then they start picking things up and they throw things. And it goes on for a very long time. You pick it up, they throw it down. You pick it up, they throw it down. And that is a really a curious phase in all of our development, because what we're learning a little bit about mastery and control, but mainly what we're learning is me, not me. Me, not me. Now, for those of us lucky enough to have had really good carers, really good primary carers, they allow us to separate and individuate, and they look at us and go, oh, you are lovely, you are so lovely. And we go, oh, I am, that's great. And we become ourselves and we hold our shape and we become our shape, and we are entitled to our tantrums and our rages and our feelings and our disappointments. And we start to be able to navigate the world as ourselves. Now, if we've been lucky enough to have all that trust and that good foundation and that beautiful nurturing, then we are likely to be able to tolerate loneliness in an easier way. We won't escape it. Nobody escapes loneliness. It is part of the human condition. And it is part of the dilemma that we have to learn to negotiate in life. So Sian and I are very keen that at the end of this session, you'll be able to identify your feeling of loneliness. You will know where it rests in your body. When you do that and you start to breathe, you're going to be able to think about it. And of course, at that point, you'll be less afraid of it. So what we want to be able to do is help you unhitch your negative thoughts and other difficult feelings from the primary feeling of loneliness. So I'm going to bring Sian in now. Sian, hi. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Can I ask you a question, Sian? When you feel lonely, where do you feel it?
So when I feel lonely, I would almost certainly say I feel it in my heart. And I recognize it as loneliness because it is very heavy and dense, and there's a dragging feeling to it. So it has a heaviness, but it also is an emptiness as well. So it has those two kind of feelings to it.
It's such. I mean, it's no wonder we try to take flight from it, Shan, because it's not an easy feeling, is it? As you say, there is a heaviness to it, a drag to it, an ache to it. It's a kind of primary instinctive indication of do something. So, Shan, given this is a difficult feeling, what thoughts do you attach to this feeling when you feel it, when you feel lonely?
Okay, so one of the problems I think for me with loneliness that as soon as I feel lonely, um, rapidly I will begin to feel some other feelings and some other thoughts that hitch themselves on to loneliness. And the main one would be for me is that makes sense. I'm lonely because I'm unlovable. And then that makes sense to me. Yes, I'm unlovable, that's why. So there has to be almost, I mean, we're creatures of story, we love story, so putting a story to it makes a bit of sense. So it just being lonely for lonely's sake and just being in loneliness, it's actually the feelings that come whooshing in after the feeling of loneliness.
Sean, I think you're so right. We do try and weave a story, don't we, to a feeling. And I think we do it to try and make sense, to try and make sense of something, or to try and gain some control over something. I personally, and I know we're gonna show your slide of your heart, and I love your heart with that heavy, draggy, achy feeling, because I think it echoes something for me. I've had, like all of us, I've had excruciating times of loneliness. Some of the worst ones have been actually when I'm in the midst of a lot of other people and I simply don't belong and I don't connect and they don't connect to me. For me, that is and I suppose it's the evolutionary thing again, that I'm in the herd and yet I don't feel part of the herd. And it reminds me of what herd mares do to the horses in the herd, don't they? That if one of them's being naughty, the herd mare will send them out and she will keep them on the edge of the herd until they drop their heads. And when they drop their heads, she allows them back in. And I think that's what loneliness does to me too. I think I drop my head somewhere and I go, oh, if only I was bright or beautiful or popular, or I just wasn't myself. If I just wasn't this person, then I would be fitting and I wouldn't be lonely and oh my goodness, it would all just be marvellous. It would be paradise. And of course, years and years on, I now know that's not true. That actually learning to accept myself has indeed so much lessened my feelings of loneliness. Having said that, Shan, you and I know we're going to go on and have a bit of a further conversation about this, but you and I remember talking to you about a beautiful statue we saw in Scotland. Do you remember the Anthony Gormley statue, that man, and he stands there and he's looking out to sea and the waves are coming and the wind is coming and the tide is coming and going and the mountains are there. And he just stands and he looks. And I've had that image since I've seen it in my head so much. And I think it's because that I've experienced a bit of loneliness recently, actually. It's been part of my role, my job, but I felt a little bit like the only one saying this, the lone voice, the other one. And it's really interesting when I think of that statue, I think, oh, God, somebody else knows about this feeling. This is the human condition. I'm not I'm certainly not the only one who's felt lonely and had to make something of it. So, Sean, can I ask you, when you're in loneliness, what helps you? What do you go and seek?
Well, I can certainly tell you what doesn't help me, and that's sort of seeking out other people, actually. I think I've been at my loneliness when I have been with other people. What I have found, and interestingly found also as a child, that if I take myself outside and go into nature, that I find extraordinarily soothing. Just even 10 minutes, just breathing in the air, just being outside, being around birds and other animals and trees and all sorts of different essences of nature, that seems to have the most incredible effect on me.
Sean, that's brilliant. I mean, I would agree with you. There is something. I don't know if I can put it into words, and I don't know if this is true, but I do know the soothing feeling, and I don't know if it's because we start to reconnect with other and ourselves at that point, possibly. Something then.
Well, I'm wondering. Yes, because in you saying, actually, when you saw that statue, that you connected to, and then you understood that someone else in the world had felt as you felt. So the great importance of art and creativity. So that connection, when we're lonely, that connection to maybe nature or art or other creative avenues. So maybe it's just about connecting to, rather than getting rid of, filling up, with, alcohol and other substances, or trying to get rid of the feeling, actually finding healthy connection.
So thank you, Sean. That is just perfectly put. Perfectly put. And in fact, we've got a little film called When Sam Met Larry coming up. And that is how you get to know your loneliness and how you make friends with it, and you start to connect to it and yourself, and then you stop being driven about by it. Meet Sam. This is the story of when Sam met Larry. Sam is growing up, and Sam starts to feel something awful. Sam hates this feeling. The feeling just won't stop. No! Shouts Sam and tries to outrun the feeling. Meet the terrible feeling. Hello, I'm Larry. Most people try to get away from me because I represent loneliness. Too right, thinks Sam. Who'd want to feel like this? I know. You feel alone, separate. You feel overwhelmed and miserable sometimes. Oh, and your heart feels heavy and sad. And your head, and your thoughts, so many thoughts. It is your fault. You are unlovable. You are stupid. You're untalented. You're ugly. You're uninterested. You are not like anyone else. I am going to get rid of you, Larry. That's better. Me and my ice cream. Okay, Larry, I'm going to drown you out. Where's the booze? That did not help. I now feel more stupid and alone and ashamed. Okay, that did feel terrible. Worse than before. Sam, please listen to me. I'm really not that bad. No way. I'm going to fill myself up with other people. Why do I still feel lonely? Why doesn't anything work? Sam, stop! Just stop. Listen. I'm just letting you know, you are an individual. You are unique. Thanks for stopping, Sam. When you listen to me, I don't have to shout so loud. Thanks, Larry. I'm happier, calmer. I am starting to feel I am okay and I am getting to know myself. I am unique, just like everyone else. So Sian and I have created a little toolkit just for you to go with. And in the toolkit, what we've said is, don't do, but be. Unhitch negative thoughts from your feelings of loneliness. They need to go into the trailer and not be towed along. Remember, we have to feel lonely to become an individual. When you feel the thud of loneliness, try and remember it happens to all humans. We all feel lonely at times. We don't feel lonely because we are bad or doing it wrong. Try and find something that mirrors you and what you feel. Like Sian, it was nature. Like me, it was a statue, but it could be a piece of writing, it could be music. Just something that reconnects you to you and you to the world. In the lonely times, we will get to know ourselves better, and that will make us less lonely. So the next thing we have for you are some takeaways. So it's very much in the same theme, and these are for you to go away with, but it is humans are beings, not doings. Loneliness is universal. That is really important. Honestly, if we can bear to remember this is the human condition, it's not just me, it is the human condition. Other people won't necessarily fill you up. You can only fill your inner life. When you are lonely, remind yourself that this feeling, if allowed, will change. It is a communication of your individuality. Please try and not be frightened of loneliness. Try to be curious. Well, thank you, Sian, first of all. Thank you so much for taking the time to prepare this video and this work with me, this theme. It's a very important one, and I can't help feeling that particularly in this time, at this time of year, we really hope it will help people and people will find some wisdom and surety from our film. Thank you to all those who are taking part in the film, and we really wish you well and hope that it is of some help to you. Thank you.